So if you have your right side's naturally kicking in more, good catch, that you're trying to fix it to the left side, and you're hanging on to those doorknobs, and you feel the hip flexors on the way down, driving through those heels, glutes and hamstrings on the way back up. Just make sure that left hip works as much as that right hip. You can add a snake breathe if you want. So teeth together, tongue up against the back of your teeth, and snake breathe on the way up to lock down that core. Good. So does having the doorknobs help, do you think?
Yeah, sure.
Well, the method machine has a handle for people to hang on to. So that's why I thought maybe hanging on to doorknobs might be handy. Yeah?
Yeah. When I do regular squats, I feel it in my quads a lot. So this helps me not feel it in my quads so much.
Ah, brilliant. Okay, good. So then another good place to hang on to things if you don't happen to have two doorknobs handy is a sink. Sink squats also kind of give you that same effect. So you can throw your hands on the inside of the sink, and you can use the sink to counterbalance your hips. That works really well. You can hang on to a post, but doorknobs work great too because you have one for each hand. Good. Fantastic. So of the 5-minute squat challenge, you have completed 3 minutes and 25 seconds.
Okay.
How are we doing so far? So good?
I feel it up here.
Did that just start?
Maybe 30 seconds ago.
Are you still in your glutes?
No, not really.
Oh, maybe that's why. So hold on to those doorknobs lightly, because if you hang on to them, see how this replicates hanging on to maybe bike handles?
Yeah.
So if you hang on too tight and you let your back do the work and not your hips, then we might have encountered what's going on when you ride bikes too.
Okay.
So really focus on those glutes, really focus on those hamstrings, and see if you can get them to be the powerhouses of the movement. That's kind of that's the other interesting thing about doing this 5-minute nonstop squat challenge, is that you start to see what happens in a movement pattern over time. So that's always the hardest part of my job, is getting good muscles to translate to movement into a movement pattern over time, because you've done this movement pattern for a lot of years, and to introduce new muscles in can be slightly tricky.
Yeah.
Or just to get them to stay. They're easy to introduce. To get them to stay is kind of the tricky part. So that's always been the toughest part of my job.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's 5 minutes. Give me a summation of what's going on before you pull out.
Towards the end, I could feel my quads a little bit. I still feel it here a little bit. I started to feel it here a little bit.
So you just started to feel the glutes at the very end?
Yeah.
So what do you suppose you were using the rest of the time?
Hamstrings. And then the whole time I could feel it in the tops of my knees. So probably quads a lot.
Quads a lot.
My lower to mid back.
Sure. Quads and lower to mid back. Interesting. And very little glutes.
Yeah.
Huh. Are you wearing shoes?
I have socks on.
Just socks. Were you driving through your heels as you're going up and down?
Yes.
Okay, so you're driving through your heels and still those glutes were a little reticent. So you went straight to your quads and straight to your low back but you did get a little bit of hamstrings. Yeah. Interesting.
So if I were to do that in the future, because I feel like you might assign it to me for the I should do some exercises before that to tire some things out, like tire out my quads first.
Excellent. Good thinking. Yes. And the other thing you could try is a couple of glute bridges, maybe on the ground, to see if you can get your brain reconnected with that nerve pathway into your glute. before you try it in a loaded position, because that usually goes well. You find those muscles in an unloaded position, and then you load them up, and you find it in a loaded position and integrate it into a movement pattern like a squat, and you see how it goes. So I think that's an excellent idea.
Okay.
Smart girl. Oh, that's smart. Okay, cool. So, yeah, I think the breathing and walking and trying the 5 minutes of nonstop squats and what it takes to get 2 glutes working and not a low back that tightens up and not knees that complain. Because look what happened. You went into classic quad calf, low back dominance instead of our favorite. I mean, with some hamstrings though, so that's good. So it's better than the classic quad calf low back stuff. You had quad, a little bit quad and hamstring, and then it just missed the glutes. And then your body was like, well, she keeps moving, so we're gonna have to ask the nearest neighbor for some help. And that's all that happened. So the other thing you could do is add some snake breathe into that to see how it goes.
Okay.
And see if that keeps it out of your back and keeps it in your glutes. So that would be another interesting thing to experiment with. Okay. So yeah, this is your mission should you choose to accept it.
Okay.
Awesome. Okay.